And you know what? Usually when we want to do something first, we're like, oh, let's do something gigantic.
Why not?
It's kind of a big go big or go home type of thing. I mean, obviously it's the best soap opera, don't know the ending, the fandom, the emotions that come along with it. So in a lot of ways, it actually very much connects to great storytelling. And so great characters, high stakes, surprise ending, emotionally invested. So in that way, it's just great storytelling.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of SBJ's On Stage. I'm your host, Taylor Bloom. Today we're taking you to the CAA World Congress of Sports presented by Sports Business Journal, where Bela Bajaria, Chief Content Officer at Netflix, joined Elle Duncan, lead host of sports and live events at Netflix, for a compelling conversation about the evolution of sports, media, and entertainment. As the executive responsible for Netflix's global content strategy, Bajaria oversees one of the most influential programming portfolios in the world. In this discussion, she shares how Netflix thinks about storytelling, why live sports have become an increasingly important part of the company's vision, and what makes content resonate with audiences across the globe. Whether you're interested in sports, media, or leadership, this conversation offers valuable insight into how one of the industry's biggest innovators is shaping the future of entertainment. Let's go on stage.
I do want to ask you sort of what I mentioned off the top. It feels as though for a very long time, Netflix was not in the business of doing live sports, live events. And what I've learned in my 3 months at Netflix is when you guys decide to do something, you go all the way in.
We sure do.
What were the conversations looking at that led to you focusing on this space?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. So 2016, we started the Unscripted group. Mm-hmm. And there started becoming, after the next couple of years, natural conversations about, we want to be great at everything. And we knew there were certain kinds of programming that have to be live and should be live. And we like things that are buzzy and conversational and surprising for the audience. And we knew at that point, we had to build live capabilities. And that sounds basic, probably to all of you, yes, live, but when you are built as Netflix, which is consumer choice and control, on demand, watch what you want, the entire thing is built that way. And so to actually do something live and say, this is the time we want you to watch something, is just a different strategy. But we knew that there were so many great things, obviously including sports, that we had to have the live capabilities. But if we were gonna build it, we wanted to do it incredibly well. We wanted to invest a lot in it. And so we really had to want to make sure everybody around the company, was all ready to go around the world to really make live, a thing. And obviously we did Chris Rock's Selective Outrage stand up first, and then we did, the Brady roast. And again, so it's definitely sports are a center of those events, but it's also something like BTS in Korea live after being in the military for 2 years. So it is a wide range of things, but live really gave us the ability to make up new things, have partnerships with, leagues and other people of doing kinds of programming that we couldn't do otherwise.
Jake Paul, Mike Tyson too,
yeah,
right?
Yes, and then Jake Paul, Mike Tyson. And you know what? Usually when we want to do something first, we're like, oh, let's do something gigantic.
Why not?
Yeah, which is a little bit like doing, in Japan, the first live event we did was World Baseball Classic. So it's kind of a big go big or go home type of thing.
We love that very much. You don't have you're a huge sports lover, but you don't have a traditional sports background. What do you think that you bring to the table that maybe factors that you see that maybe someone from this space doesn't traditionally look at?
Yeah, I think it's, it's so interesting. So I'm definitely a sports fan and so much about it, right? I mean, obviously it's the best soap opera, don't know the ending, the fandom, the emotions that come along with it. So in a lot of ways, it actually very much connects to great storytelling. And so great characters, high stakes, surprise ending, emotionally invested. So in that way, it's just great storytelling. And so for me, the combination of, giving sort of sports and having that to our members around the world, and then also having sometimes a doc, right? A doc about that athlete, about the sport, which then, something like Drive to Survive, you love the characters, you understand Formula One probably more, you get invested in them, and then which helps grow the sports. So to me, even though I didn't come from a traditional sports background, I was always the person when I worked at CBS and NBC, and the sports division was far over there from entertainment. Like, what's going on over there? I was always super interested in the business of sports and the storytelling kind of sports. And so for me, it's so amazing to be able to connect it around the world with film and TV and the sporting event, and how all of those things actually connect.
Yeah, especially holistically, because they do. There's so many touch points on both. I want to settle a term. I have used a very clunky term when I'm doing press about Netflix and getting into live sports and doing these big things, and I keep saying, we're going to Netflix-ify things, which is very rudimentary and crude. Netflix says eventize. That's what you said. You're going to eventize these huge can't-miss moments. But I have to know, Bella, like, what in your mind is a can't-miss moment? What are you looking at to decide what you're going to eventize?
Yeah. I don't mind the next Netflix-ify.
Netflix-ify.
I don't mind that.
It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue,
I think
guys.
as long as that means buzzy, surprising, coming at it a way that you haven't seen before, like making something that is already like even great and people may want to watch bigger, more interesting, creating a conversation around the world about something. So I mean, that to me is when you use that word. So I would say eventize. I like the Netflix-ify. It's just a hard word to actually say. So I think, the good thing for us is that there's not, here's exactly what the framework is. It's one of those things that sometimes you know it when you see it. And it's just the openness to, ooh, this is fun. Like maybe this is, look, Tyson Paul is a great, example of, Gabe was like, let's do boxing. I was like, let's do boxing, sure. Also, let's do boxing and it's not pay-per-view. Let's do boxing and have access to everybody around the world at the same time. We're gonna stream these events around the world at the same time. And then how do we make it, whether it's press conference, weigh-in, the conversation around it, local teams in all of the countries that we're in, local marketing and PR teams making that conversation kind of write their own. And so it can be a wide range of Christmas plus NFL, fun. Everybody loves it. We know people love football. I love football. But again, Christmas Day, how do we create as an event? How do we get different commentators to be so father, son, brothers, like how do you sort of really do a family vibe? And then you know what? We're the biggest entertainment company in the world. We gotta do a halftime show at Christmas. And you know what? The first year, it's gotta be Beyonce because we wanna make it big.
Go big or go home.
So it's all of those things of like what feels kind of exciting. And I'd say the other thing is we look at things and go, that's great. Do we think we can eventize it? Do we think we have something special to offer, some different points of view, some more investment, something we can do to kind of even make it a little more sparkly? And if we don't think we can, we don't do those things. And if we think we have a really great either passion, creative take, audience really, this would really matter and we could do something different with it, then we usually that's kind of when we lean in. But that's why it's NFL on Christmas with Beyonce and then Snoop, who was awesome. But it's also, as you know, Alex Honnold climbing Taipei 101.
Exactly.
Like people were like, what? A guy's climbing a building? I mean, again, not on the bingo card, not obvious, like, let's have a guy climb a building. But when Alex was like, my dream is to climb Taipei 101 without a rope or net, we're in the business of making dreams come true. So we were like, okay, if you feel very confident, I feel confident. But it was, as you know, because you were there, compelling, like amazing live event television. And amazing of how many people watched it after.
Yep.
You knew he made it. And by the way, still kind of terrifying after.
Yeah.
You didn't know he made it to watch.
Awful.
And so those events, right, that was not something we could say, this is the kind of thing we would do, but it does fit kind of all that criteria that I was talking about.
Absolutely, and the social currency alone, I think, for Skyscraper did incredible numbers. Over 6 million people watched, but then there was it was my whole personality on my timeline for like 3 weeks is just climbing.
Yeah.
But I love that you mentioned that. And by the way, we heard Bella mention Gabe. That's Gabe Spitzer, who is the head of Netflix Sports, who's in the audience. Hey, Gabe.
Hi, Gabe. And and what I love is sort of the impact. Then after that, people are like signing up for rock climbing classes, and now they're doing it as hobbies. And now in Taipei, that building is actually like falling apart a little bit because everybody's tried to climb. Literally nobody can get past the first part of it. But that impact or inspiration that Alex had, which was regular guy doing something extraordinary, and so again, that connection that people felt to that, to either get inspired to try to do that, and that's why, right? It's just so many things, and what I love is that it's unmissable moments that are buzzy and can really have a global conversation.
Is that the through line? Because I mean, you went there and I was going to go there, so great lob, thank you, sis. But the idea that you would do something like Skyscraper Live, and then a few weeks later I was doing MLB opening day, and then I'm doing Tyson Fury, Makhmudov in London. Have you noticed with the eventizing of these live events that there is a through line, something that translates through all of them, even though seemingly on paper they're all very different?
Look, I think there's definitely super fandom, right? Sometimes in more, even specifically in a country, right? Fury in the UK, big deal, right? And what that means. But we're streaming that to a global audience. So everybody has access to it, even different time zones. You wake up and there it is. You click on Netflix and you can just watch that fight, beginning to end. And we did see people, that are watching even live boxing events, right, even after the fact. So I'd say through line is sometimes there's the real fandom of it. Other through line is, can we either strategically do something different or have a different spark in that conversation that even makes it kind of bigger than the sum of its parts? And so I'd say that's through line, and I'm super excited about. And sometimes we're like generational talent, just super interesting way to do something, and doing, May 16th, we're doing Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano at the Into It. Yep. And, that's like amazing, generational talent that way, and what they represented of shattering lots of glass ceilings. But that's just MMA on Netflix. But we're gonna make it, lots of kind of conversation on what that card is around it.
Yeah. One of the most recent things that we're coming off of that was a huge massive success was BTS Live, over 18 million viewers. It was #1 in 24 different countries. What have you learned? You mentioned the word fandom. What did you learn from BTS Live about fandom and how it translates when you give them something to all watch together?
So I think the interesting thing about BTS, K-pop band, for some of you people who are super deep into sports and you don't know what's happening
I see the glaze.
That.
They're like, what?
Yeah, some of you are like, I have no idea what that is. Okay, so BTS, right, most famous, popular, K-pop band, and had to do military service. And so again, what's that moment? Why? It's not that we just go, oh, it's a live concert, let's do any random live concert. There's some either thoughtful strategy of why that. They haven't performed since they've been military service. They've changed their looks. They've had the experience of going through actual military service, and then doing it in Seoul, live from Seoul globally, right, was kind of the reason to do that. And then we also did the doc of BTS kind of at the same time. So you watch this, big global conversation around it, them coming back for the first time, performing, and again, doing it from their hometown. There's lots of conversations, where do you do it? We could do it in the US, but it totally makes sense, again, to be authentic to what it is and grounded in Seoul, and do that globally. But then we launched the BTS doc right after. And so people who, you watch it, you have the fandom, and then you go into more of the storytelling of the doc.
I think I'm always reminded too, that Netflix is global. It's in 190 countries. So I came from a world where it was really singularly focused on what the domestic audience wanted and needed. Women's sports is so important to me. It's a big place and space that I was able to make a name for myself, and I know how important it is to you as well. I was told that in all of the meetings in the lead up to joining you guys at Netflix, and we've seen that with the Taylor Serrano fight. You mentioned that we're gonna get Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano, and then we have the Women's World Cup coming up next year. Any soccer fans? Do we have soccer fans in the building? Yes. But when you say the word elevate, you want to elevate women's sports. What does that look like in real practice?
I think in a lot of ways it means investment.
Okay.
So I'd say, and look, and Jake and Evie were great partners when we did Paul Tyson, because to have the co-main be Taylor Serrano, so to give them and women's boxing that platform, global platform with marketing, PR, the investment in the fight and everything around it, the investment in actually giving them that kind of audience, right? And I've spoken to a lot of the female fighters who are like, we've just never had that kind of investment before, right, in our fight. It's not like, well, here's a women's fight and here's a men's fight, because you and I are not gonna look at it that way. Yeah. We're just gonna look like they're ballers and amazing at what they do. And so instead of kind of putting it in its own little corner over here, it's a great event. It's a great sport. They're great athletes, and to have that platform for them. So to me, the elevating is, do we really invest in it? And that means in all aspects, right? And again, because if you don't have investment in it and really provide a global platform, right? So we have 300 million and change, you can look it up, subscriber accounts, which means it's 1 billion people, right? So if 1 billion people are watching and you're saying we are going to stream this everywhere and have access, to what this, sporting event is that's kind of what I think elevating it means. I think it also sometimes is the great storytelling, right? It's to take the investment in time and do Simone Biles or Hope Solo's doc and really tell the story, follow the story. Do people sort of understand kind of what happened there, give them access to tell their own story kind of in that way? I think that's another example of it. But I'm so excited for Women's World Cup. I mean, I'm a big U.S. women's national team fan, and also just a soccer/football fan, whatever you want to call it. Either, both. I like all versions of football, so both. But I just, I think, we're looking at, again, the teams, since we got the rights, are looking at all the ways, like, how do we make this, like, special and dynamic and big and conversation, and what are all the things we can do? And I think the good thing is, for people who partner with us and for the audience, we want the game to be the game, right? People, if you want to watch this, I want, the game to be the game. That's what it is. But we don't come with decades and decades of it's only been done this way, so we have to do it this way. We just kind of go a little sort of fresh eyes of like, what can we do? How do we position it? What can we say about it? How else can we get sort of people there? And there's a lot of great, creative ideas that come from that, which is as, simple as we'll do halftime at Christmas, and everybody's like, oh, people don't normally do a halftime. We're like, well, obviously we know that, but we're trying to we're an entertainment company, so we still want to add a little zhuzh. That's what we do.
We aim to entertain.
Yeah.
And I think that's, really interesting as well when you talk about storytelling. When it comes to women, I think visibility is so important in changing perceptions, but in general, you could make that about anything. You've seen that storytelling can change the trajectory of a sport, as evident by Formula One and Drive to Survive, which completely changed the demographics, the makeup, the numbers blew up domestically when that came about. What have you learned about the impact that storytelling around the sport itself can have?
Yeah, and I think, looking at Formula One Drive to Survive was a really clear example of that. So my oldest daughter, the one you share a birthday with,
yes,
right, called me 5 years ago and said, oh my God, the best show on Netflix is Drive to Survive. And I was like, you have never watched a sport in your life. What are you saying to me? She gets up and watches all the 4 F1 the races. She flies to the places to watch. She literally so invested in Formula One because of the storytelling. This is a girl who does not watch one sport, right? So I was like, and then I was like, ooh, if this is happening in my own real life, this is clearly a thing, right? This is not just obviously happening to her. And then again, it's that same thing of, which we saw with Full Swing, which I love so much, to really watch those golfers and understand kind of that mindset and what they're going through, and the stakes and kind of the internal dialogue that they share, and to get a better understanding or appreciation for kind of when they put themselves out there, and PGA sort of saw that lift kind of after. So to me, it's really it's interesting if you're a fan of the sport, you love football, you can watch quarterback, wide receiver. If you watch, if you like a sport, you could watch one of these docs. But what's interesting is all of these other people who are not a fan of the sport, who will just watch it for great storytelling because it's real stakes. You have athletes, people putting themselves out there in that way and being vulnerable and emotional and giving you real, and we do it when we have real access. And real access isn't about, we want some gotcha juicy thing. It's real access is like, because we want to tell an authentic, powerful story. And that's what that's about, because people can feel when something is fake or manufactured. And when people are going to be invested in an athlete or sport, it's because they feel a connection or they got to know you. It's kind of like when there's people who go up to actors if they've been on a TV show or a movie and they just are like, I know you, because you feel like you know this person. And they're kind of like, do I know you? And they're like, no, but I know you, right? I've spent hours and hours and seasons of seasons in my home. I know you. And I think that's what, when we do the docs that the team does incredibly well. And again, when we have access and it's a willing participant who's like, I want to tell this story, or when David Beckham was ready to tell that story. And when we partner in that way, people do just get invested in that athlete and definitely the sport.
Yeah, but you're right, but at the same time, it's Netflix. Everyone wants to work with Netflix. You have to be a little bit curated with the type of person that you want to highlight, right? You said quarterback. We know that, we highlighted Simone Biles as well. Like, is there a type of person, athlete, or figure that you're specifically looking to highlight? Do they have to hit some like core tenets to be Netflix-ified? Still not a thing?
I don't think, look, it's a wide range. Look, I think it's either you want some kind of like seminal career or excellence in the field, or maybe sort of a different angle into more of an untold kind of story about somebody. But I think part of it is there's some athletes who come to us who are very big. And you would think by that name, we should just do it. But theirs is kind of like a chill story, or they want to do the fluffy version and they don't want to talk about the hard stuff, right? Not very inspirational if you're not going to talk about the hard stuff. Or you don't really have any like major sort of like setback thing, right? And so that's kind of, that's a factor. And I would say it's really the factor also of, when they are ready to actually tell that story. And I think, obviously, as you can imagine, we like to say yes a lot, but there's more athletes than docs that we're going to do. So it really depends on what's the take. Why now? Beckham had a really clear reason. Simone Biles definitely had something to say. It was also moments in her career of coming back and doing the Olympics. There's been people who it's like, look, we just did, and it was a very different angle. In our Untold series, Lamar Odom has an amazing doc on Netflix right now, but was ready to tell the whole story. But what's so interesting about it is we all heard and read about like all the hardship part and all that, but there's also the really who he is as a player and how amazing he was as an athlete and what it was to come to the Lakers at that time and what was going on with the NBA and basketball. So it gives you this really interesting context of the sport, and then from a deeply personal story where he and Khloe Kardashian really talk about it. So there's no kind of one size fits all, and I think that's that's also the difference. I think people kind of go, here's my sport, do this, Drive to Survive. It's Drive to Survive, but this sport. It's Beckham, but this person. And I'm like, that's not how we do it. It's like, what is the angle? What is the story? What is the filmmaker's approach? Because we want each of them to do a great job of telling that story.
And to feel fresh.
Yeah.
Obviously, doing sports adjacent programming around major events is not new, but in a traditional media background, which I came from, y'all know this, if you don't got the rights to the sport, you ain't really doing anything with that sport. And that's very different from Netflix. Obviously, we're going to have a lot of sports adjacent programming around the Women's World Cup. You do not have the rights to Formula One. Yeah. That did not stop you. And I'm just wondering, what you've learned about doing, you had an Olympics documentary around the Olympics. what you've learned about having sports adjacent programming, even in properties that you don't necessarily own.
Yeah, I think people are always puzzled by why they would do something that helps grow another sport on another network. That's not really, like I want to make sure on Netflix, we have the best film and TV for our members around the world, full stop. That's just what it is. So if that athlete or that story or that sport or people are really obviously watching Olympics and taken by that, I care about the storytelling part, right, of that. And again, we're not going to go, well, we're not going to help NBC or Peacock because they have the Olympics. It's so short-sighted. I still want to care about our strategy and our focus and our mission, which is to have the best stories. So if something is going on culturally, something is going on, and other people have the rights to the sport, which again, the leagues they're definitely going to have like rights, other places will. But if that story is the right story to tell, or that moment in time we should explore, and it helps have interest somewhere else, like I'm just not that kind of fussed by that. I just want to sort of win in capturing kind of hearts and imaginations and having that viewing sort of, for the story, versus being so short-sighted or so defensive. Like I'd rather play offense, right? And so I just sort of don't look at it like that. But I know people are very puzzled by, if you're gonna do this, just by the league. And at that point, that would just be like, we're just doing every sport because we care about doing docs in every sport.
And giving your members as much as you can on the service, which is what they've come to expect. I'm going to end with a rapid fire, but very quickly, Bella, has there anything that you guys have done in the live sports or live event space over the last few years that surprised you in terms of how many people watched it, were invested in it, that like overperformed?
Look, I love to be surprised because that's always fun. It's hard to have imagined what Tyson Paul became. Yeah. Like we knew it was a no-brainer to be big. Don't get me wrong. I was like, it's Mike Tyson. We're not stupid. We knew it was going to be big. The largest streaming sporting event. Like it's crazy,
ever.
kind of what happened. So I think that and I think what I'm not sure surprised, but I was really interested and compelled by Alex Honnold, just having such people were riveted, yes. Right? The attention to what that became that night and after, and the conversation about what it was, and that people couldn't look away. And I think that really captured way more conversation kind of after the fact. Again, because that thing we were making up.
Yeah, there was no blueprint.
This sporting event, right? We were making it up. So I think, that, but again, what I love is I care so much that we surprise the audience. And I love it when we surprise ourselves too.
Okay, we're gonna end with some quick rapid fire. The one event.
Is this gonna be like, are you gonna buy this? Are you gonna buy this? Yeah, right. Are you gonna buy this? Yes.
Vanilla ice cream, no. Yes. It's all much more like personality driven. The one event you wish you could have been in the building for. Any event. Doesn't have to be a Netflix event.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to go, but I always wanted to go to World Cup final, which I haven't been to.
Okay. Meet you in Brazil. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Athlete you'd most want to grab dinner with?
Oh my God, there's so many.
It's a tough one.
I would have said Beckham, but now I have a little brag, but I'm just saying.
Flex girl.
Oh my God. Gabe, who do I want to have? Who do I talk about obsessively?
Tom Brady.
No. Don't make that a headline. Not like that. Not like that. I met him. Not like that.
She's like, all set. I'll let you off the hook with that one.
Okay, let me off the hook.
Last thing you binge watched that had nothing to do with your job.
Love Story.
Very good. During the group chat with a big moment happening, are you active or are you a silent observer?
Work group chat or
like your friend group chat? You're watching Skyscraper with your friends and you're like, who are you?
can text like a teenager.
Okay.
So I am fully engaged on the text.
Nice. With all the lingo and stuff too. You're
With
like,
all
what does
the-
that
all the
mean?
thing.
GRW.
I love an emoji. I love
Yeah.
a little attitude. Usually it's I only have very few like attitude-y ones, but yeah.
Nice. I love that. And lastly, one word to describe the future of sports on Netflix.
Oh wait, Megan Rapinoe, I think I'd want to have dinner with.
She's great. I've had dinner with her. I can attest. It's a time.
See?
It's a
There you go.
time.
What was your last one? Sorry.
I'm just thinking about that time that I had with Megan, and it's not safe for work.
Yeah.
One word to describe the future of sports at Netflix.
Bold.
Bold. I mean, that's a way to end it right there. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
your
Thanks,
time. Bella,
everybody.
thank you so
Appreciate
much
it.
for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of On Stage. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with colleagues interested in sports, media, streaming, and the future of content. Here's a thought to take with you. As audiences have more choices than ever before, what makes a story or a brand truly stand out and create lasting connection? I'd love to hear your perspective. Shoot me a note at tbloom@sportsbusinessjournal.com. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another conversation from the stage featuring leaders shaping the future of sports business. Until next time, stay tuned and stay ahead. This is On Stage.